that we had user error here for a moment. Let's see if we're live now. Some days, right? So anyway, today's topic is the turbulence of change. We are live. This is great. So when there is change, what defines change? Change is the uprooting of an existing condition and a new condition presenting itself. And so we can liken it to a change, for instance, in weather, where maybe a cold front, for instance, would be coming in and you feel the wind. There's the transition that's happening. There's movement, and that movement is turbulence. And it's very interesting to think about how that turbulence occurs in our own lives. So this conversation comes through a conversation that I had with someone yesterday. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome, welcome. So good to have you here this morning. So when the conversation about change was that there was all this sense. This person has experienced kind of an awakening through deep meditation. They actually had gone to a Joe Dispenza event, and it just really opened up their world in a very profound way. And this, although a very positive change, there's a real sense of disorientation as they're trying to navigate that world of expansiveness where the everyday is somewhat transcended, where the orientation to the daily material concerns of our existence, the perspective on all of that has had a radical shift. And now they're trying to figure out or how to calibrate to this new experience of themselves and of the world, while also trying to maintain their job and their responsibilities. And it's a big change. It's a positive change for them internally, but it's turbulent. It's challenging to find a way to navigate. And they've said, wow, like there are times when I just feel like I'm going crazy, or I'm afraid I'm going crazy. And I don't think that that's very uncommon, frankly. I think that occurs very very often for people as they open up to deeper spiritual sorts of experiences or expanded consciousness kinds of experiences, and how to navigate in a world that isn't on the same plane somehow. It's like, it was really fascinating to speak to this person and them saying, wow, everything looks different. Everything just feels different. I feel different. The world is a different place. And then interacting with it from the perspective of the non-material and recognizing how material existence functions, like sort of be feeling separate from it, feeling detached from it. It's a very, it can be a very, very disorienting thing. And so by identifying that there's big change happening and that change can be very disorienting, and that there is turbulence as part of change, that's natural, that's a normal part of change, that this person was better able to feel okay about feeling unsettled. And we are in a time of such change on this planet uh, as living creatures on this planet, and as humanity on this planet. We are in very, very turbulent times. So Rosalind says grounding, finding a new footing. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough because in a time of change, along with the turbulence, is an unknown. So how do we ground ourselves in the unknown? So I'm going through this also myself with my cat Jewel, who is not really eating with not eating enough to really be flourishing, um, or even maybe even being staying alive. Like my sense is that she's dying, and then she seems to rally, and then she seems like she's dying, and then she rallies. And so there's change, there's transition that is happening, and it's turbulent. I don't know what, I mean, eventually I know what the outcome is, but I don't know at this moment if she's gonna be the comeback kid that she's been so many times before, or if this is it, even though I've had a sense that this is it, but I don't know. And so there's the disruption and the turbulence, and finding a way to be grounded, as you say, Rosalind, to be grounded in the change, in the course of change, to be grounded in the face of uncertainty, to be or maybe to learn to float with it, to be able to move with it rather than resisting it. As we resist change, as we resist turbulence, there's a stiffening that can make us more brittle. Rosalind says, Jewel, sending warm snuggles. Very sweet, Rosalind. Thank you for that. Yeah, we've been having some really quality time together. She's been taking me outside in the morning at like 5 in the morning, 5:30, to have her morning constitutional. And this morning we went outside at like 5, and she just went on a pretty good long walk. And it was crazy. And then came back into the house. I walk with her, obviously. Well, maybe not obviously, but I walk with her, and yeah. So I can't. I am in a state of not knowing, and there's change afoot. And so how do we find our sense of presence and balance in the context of the turbulence of change? And when we think about balance, I think it's really important to remember that balance is a constant readjusting. It's not static, it's dynamic, where there's constant minor and sometimes not so minor corrections to be able to stay in balance, which is funny because we speak about staying in balance as if it's a steady state, like a static state, but it isn't. It's dynamic and it's in motion. And it just may be subtle or it may not. So with this sense of turbulence, and in our country, in our world right now, there's so much change happening, um, that it's very easy to get sucked into reactionary patterns around it. And I had a conversation with someone else who was talking about how they're highly intuitive and they just see all this horrible stuff coming down the pike. And what we got to recognize is that the lens through which this horrible stuff was being perceived was a conditioned lens from having had horrible stuff happen in their lives. So the intuition that they have is coming through this very specialized lens of trauma and anguish. And it's interesting to see that we interpret the world largely, it's not a surprise, but we interpret the world largely through our experiences and our conditioning, right? So one of the ways that we can manage or navigate, I don't manage ourselves perhaps, that we can better navigate the turbulence is by finding a space, a lens that is more supportive, finding a perspective that offers us maybe a greater context, a greater awareness. You know, like one of the things we can do is zoom out and see the bigger picture and see how things are interacting as part of a greater dynamic rather than focusing in on one small thing. So oftentimes, if we're going through a challenging time, we can stand back, zoom out, and say, you know what, in 5 years from now, I'm not even going to remember what all of this stuff. Or in 5 years from now, there'll be so much more to be focused on. This will be irrelevant. Or another vantage point that we can take, and it is a discipline, but it's very helpful, is to recognize that in every challenge is an opportunity. You know, creating, reframing, reconceptualizing something has a profound impact on changing our experience. So another example with someone yesterday, this same person actually, who had gone through this massive transformation, has been experiencing symptoms that are cold-like. And we were talking about it, and rather than moving from a place of feeling that something was wrong, you know, that there was really something to be concerned about, after taking the normal precautions, taking COVID tests and checking all that stuff out, we entertain the possibility that the body is clearing, that the body is cleansing itself and releasing toxins and releasing old patterns. And it was interesting because the pattern of thought that something's wrong was an ingrained pattern that had to do with a lot of fear. And so we were able to move through and address the fear, release the fear. And as a result, the person said that they felt so much better. They felt more energy. They had been saying that it felt like there was fear stuck. There was energy that was stuck. And we were able to move that energy and free it up. And as a result, also with the reframing, this person had a very different perspective. So when we're experiencing upheaval, I mean, we look at socially what's going on, there's all kinds of upheaval. And that happens as part of an evolution. Like we can just look at birth as an example. Birth is not typically not a peaceful process, with labor pains and releasing this baby from the womb. It's not really a peaceful process typically, right? And if we can think of the turbulence that we're experiencing as a birth, as a rebirth, birthing a new world, it's turbulent. It's turbulent. And maybe by having that broader perspective, we can allow ourselves more grace in moving through the turbulence. So allowing ourselves to be present to what is rather than trying to deny it or pretend that it's something else. So Rosalind says, so what are ways to assimilate when things feel not as clear, like the dust hasn't settled? Well, yeah, I get that. I mean, I'm in the midst of that. Totally, and I think so many of us are. And Rosalind goes on to say, when someone's second guessing the next step under financial stress, when someone's second guessing the next step under financial stress, perhaps the basic or root chakra's survival instinct is overactive. Ways to feel safe in body despite path being unclear. Yeah, so safety is a big deal. So in financial stress, we're typically in some sort of state of panic and don't necessarily make the best decisions when we're in a state of panic. And also in the face of change, feeling unsafe. And so one of the things that supports me anyway in experiencing greater safety, greater trust, is the notion that life is happening for me and through me rather than to me. In other words, that life and I are partners, and it's all ultimately serving me. Doesn't mean I like it, doesn't mean it's easy, but it's also the notion of in every challenge is an opportunity, to convert obstacles to opportunity. And when we perceive things from that lens or that predisposition, the experience of life is different. And it allows us to navigate these challenges, these obstacles, this turbulence, the change, with greater grace. It allows us to release our resistance to what is. And as we release the resistance, we can be present. We can be more present. And in the place of being more present, we have the ability to connect to what wants to emerge. So if we can be present, what we're doing is we're freeing ourselves from the past, which is the source of a lot of our fear, because we've had these experiences that have registered in us and we remember them. It's kind of a survival thing, right? I guess, to remember them. But ironically, what happens is that in that pattern of survival, it often ends up being an impediment to our thriving, because we're in emergency mode. And that comes from the past, the memories of the past, the things that trigger us. Which reminds me of another wonderful session from yesterday, where this person put together in just the most beautiful way that they have all these buttons that can be pushed to just trigger them into this whole other dimension of experience, reactivity triggers. And the image that they had was a manual typewriter, which was so cool because they were editing a document from using this manual typewriter in their visualization. And it was just so cool because it was all these buttons that were being pressed, but they were editing. So they were editing their triggers, editing their responses, editing their history. It was just super, super, super cool. And we can create that for ourselves, where we can rewrite our past, and we can rewrite our future, or we can write our future into something that's life affirming and that allows us to navigate the turbulence. I mean, if you think about it, what is surfing? It's literally navigating the turbulence. And if we can imagine ourselves surfing, like really being responsive, really being connected, and utilizing the turbulence to move us in the direction that we desire to go. So that's it for this morning. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to check out or like and follow the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel, as well as mine. And the links are in the chat. So until next time, so much gratitude for the opportunity to spend these minutes in the morning musing together about the nature of being. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Until next time, so much love to you.